Welcome to Politics Done Right on KPFT. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Give me a call at 713-526-5738. That is 713-526-KPFT. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of our show today. Hey, Don, how are you doing today? Our grand producer extraordinaire. How's it going, my friend?
I am doing.
Folks, we're going to have a great program for you today. The title of the program is called Trump and GOP Building the Narrative to Stymie 2018. And again, we want to take that seriously. And here's how it starts. And it goes as follows. Before I start, I have a special ask for my listeners. I'd like you to go to the Facebook page, Politics Done Right, and like the page, Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies, and like the page. Also, please remember to go to Twitter and follow Egberto Willies. Anyway, folks, many accuse me of always being a pessimist as it relates to the Democratic prospects, even in 2018. Look, even as I expressed concern about Hillary Clinton's campaign, members of the largest and most influential trafficked liberal site in the country virtually slaughtered me. You know, when I say they slaughtered me, I mean they slaughtered me. They told me that I am not looking at things the way I should, etc., etc., etc. Well, you know what? I'm having those same feelings. Look, the wins are decidedly at the backs of progressives at this instant in time. After all, Democrats have flipped 34 seats and Republicans only 4 since the election of Donald Trump. The one thing I know is that the Republican establishment learns very, very fast. They do not change their ideology or their evil deeds, but they sure know how to adjust the narrative. Electoral plausibility. They're getting a whole lot of what we call electoral plausibility. But before I get to this program, I want to remind all our listeners that KPFT is a bastion of intelligent voices and programs. As a political activist myself, my favorites are Think Wing Radio with
Nick Honig on Mondays at 9 p.m.
And then, of course, we have Partisan Gridlock
with Jeff Berg on Fridays at 3 p.m.
And then don't forget about Open Journal
with Dwayne Bradley and Susan Phillips Rand.
Oh, you got it.
I don't need you to write it for me.
I got it, man. And we have, of course, Jazz Latino with
Juan Flores on Tuesdays at noon.
Folks, before we go on to that further with that, let me tell you, that is what I call the best jazz that you're going to hear. Is Afro-Latin jazz, so it's pretty good. And of course, continuing, we have The Human Condition by your one and only Don right here in the studio, or our producer extraordinaire, as well as a free minstrel show with Don and Dwayne. One starts at 3, the other one starts at 4. But folks, listen, check out our full schedule at kpft.org, where you can find programming from music to politics to medicine to the eclectic. KPFT is a listener-supported public community radio station, so please remember that if you like what you hear, visit kpft.org and ensure we remain a strong, viable community radio station that provides news, programming, and information not influenced by whom?
The corporatocracy.
Yes, exactly right. Not influenced by the corporatocracy at all. Look, folks, what are your thoughts? Please do remember, this is a call-in show. Remember to give us a call at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. But folks, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, here is our weekly blog post, folks. Here is our weekly blog post. The name of it is Democrats Prepare for Outside Forces Could Stymie Impending Blue Wave. And it goes as follows. The drum beats of the impending blue wave are getting louder, so much so that even the traditional mainstream media are getting to quantify the lead up. Recently, CNN even led a segment with the graphic that included the words, "Since Trump inauguration, Dems flip 34 state seats, GOP flip 4. But Democrats must not get ahead of themselves. They must do the hard work to keep the momentum. With a dysfunctional GOP, that should not be too difficult unless Republicans get a whiff of what sanity could do for many of them in certain districts. Democrats must be ready for externalities, things that could derail what should surely be a blue wave. In fact, they must preempt it." Buried within the Washington Post article titled "New Alarm Among Republicans that Democrats Could Win Big This Year," there is a paragraph. There is a paragraph that should concern every American, and that paragraph said the following. In private conversations, Trump has told advisors that he doesn't think the 2018 election has to be as bad as others are predicting. He has referenced the 2002 midterms when George W. Bush and Republicans fared better, much better, after the September 11th terrorist attack. These people said, they could easily disregard a statement like that if it were not coming from a president who thinks solely about himself, a president that puts his interests ahead of that of the country and its citizens. After all, he was willing to cause the deaths of many Americans with the failed passage of Trump Care just to say he had a win. It would be easy to dismiss the statement as just another thinking out loud what many others are thinking but would never say moment from the president, but not so fast. A decimated State Department and an unqualified Secretary of Departments of Homeland Security should give us all pause. It means we are not being as preventative as we should be, which in fact opens us to more frequent terrorist attacks. On Wednesday, the Trump administration conflated terrorism with the immigration debate. CNN reported the following, and this is what they said. This is CNN in Washington. The Trump administration released a new analysis Tuesday claiming that 73% of those convicted of international terrorism-related charges in U.S. federal courts following the attacks on September 11, 2001 were foreign-born, attempting to draw a causal connection between hotly debated immigration policies disfavored by President Donald Trump and acts of terrorism. But the threadbare 11-page document raised more questions than it supplied answers about what exactly the Trump administration seeks to conclude from the snapshot of data released to the public in midst of a protracted immigration fight on Capitol Hill. The Department of Homeland Security focused on 549 individuals convicted of offenses between September 11, 2001 and December 31, 2016. But it included terrorist acts committed abroad, though it didn't say exactly how many. Doesn't provide a breakdown of how many individuals were arrested for acts committed on U.S. soil, and doesn't explain how many foreign nationals were radicalized only after entering the United States of America. CNN must be commended for the way they reported on this particular story. They fact-checked the Trump misleader in real time with the lead to the graphics that said, "Trump admin touts misleading stats to link terror immigration." I stopped my blog post for a moment to tell you. I was very happy and impressed with CNN, Don, because as that guy was talking, the junk that he was talking, as he was talking that junk, CNN had the lead underneath, in effect saying, "Look, guys, don't believe anything this guy's saying. He's just talking crap." I found that impressive that a network actually did that in real time. So, hey, kudos to CNN. Now just keep doing it, and then you'll get more kudos from us all. So back to the blog, what exactly is a political play here? The wager the president is making is that a terrorist attack occurs. He assumes that a fearful public will want a strong man, Donald Trump and his cohort, the Republicans in control. Moreover, since it is unlikely that any immigration bill would mimic Trump's racist desires, it would have the additional option to blame his inability to discriminate against Muslims as a cause of the attack. far-fetched? Maybe, maybe not. Democrats must preempt all narratives that cede defense of terrorism to the president and the Republicans. In fact, Democrats must put out the narrative now that America is at risk of a terrorist attack because of a dysfunctional State Department and a Department of Homeland Security run by an unqualified secretary. Democrats must be on the offensive and must be in preemption mode. The same must occur on the Affordable Care Act just before the 2018 election. Americans will receive another health care, or rather, just before the 2018 election, Americans will receive another health insurance premium shock. Democrats must cauterize within the minds of Americans the reality that terrorist attacks and health insurance spikes will likely occur in the forthcoming months because of Republican actions. They must repeat it over and over ad nauseum. It is essential that they are not caught flat-footed, having a fight from a defensive position. They must preempt and stay on the offense, not the defense. That is how Democrats ensure the blue wave does not turn into a ripple. Folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Most of our lines are currently open, so let's come on in and start this program. But before I start, I want to say something about what I just mentioned about being on the offense, right? You have to look at where people are and what it is that people are looking at. If you take a look at the polls, what's concerning people right now is healthcare. And of course, terrorism always concerns them when it happens. Whether they are concerned about it now or not is immaterial. If you take a look at the polls, not too many people are concerned about terrorism right now. But the first time a serious terrorist attack happens, everybody's going to be concerned about it. Everybody's going to be running scared. And that's why Democrats must be preemptive in the things that are going to affect Americans, or the things that people know will affect Americans. As an example, again, I have those two big issues. Terrorism, which doesn't appear on the polls right now. You have to be ready. But also you have to be ready about the healthcare scare or the healthcare attack that will be coming right before the election. You have to be prepared. You have to be preemptive. You have to start putting in the minds of Americans that these failures that are likely to occur and that will occur should be at the behest of what the Republicans have done. You don't wait for it to occur and then counterpunch, because in politics, counterpunching means you're losing. Let's go to line number 1. Let's go to Tag. Tag, come on in.
Hey, Egberto, how you doing?
I am doing fine, my friend. Talk to me.
Two things. One are today voter registration cards are coming out.
Yes.
But I want to say this about the terrorism issue. There is a huge inherent problem when our leadership in Washington sees the benefit of having something like 9/11 happen.
I agree.
I don't think that people really are analyzing what that means, because if they can see the benefit in it, what's going to stop them from making that happen?
Well,
there isn't anything that stops them.
Well, look, and that is what I've been trying to explain, and that's why I said we have to move from a position of offense and not a defensive position. And the reality is that is exactly what I'm talking about. You take a look at how the president has laid out the Justice Department, not the Justice Department, but the Homeland Security, and you take a look at who is appointed to Secretary of Homeland Security and what's going on in the State Department. The agencies have all become very lax. And in becoming very lax, what it means is that there is, in fact, a possibility that exactly that happens, okay? And that is what we must mitigate, my friend. And playing a defensive position is not going to solve the problem at all. You have to be on the offense, and you have to be ready to show Americans that this is their plan. This is what they're doing.
Yep. Listen, let me say something real quick about voter registration cards.
Yes, please do.
With all the talk about cross-check and people being registered in two different places, I took a good look at this card, and it says right on there, if you're going to move from one county to another in Texas, they will take care of it. They rectify the rolls. They'll take you off from Harris County and put you wherever, Montgomery or whatever.
That's a joke.
So that's fantastic, that they have a system to do that. if you're moving out of state, there's no system in place to actually take you off the rolls. So the card didn't say anything about if you're moving. That really what you need to do is sign on the back of the card. There's 2 lines that are blank there. You can sign cancel on there and then send that back to the registrar, and they will take you off the Harris County voter rolls. And that's important to me because we're moving back to Michigan.
Right.
So I don't want to be registered in Texas and be registered in Michigan at the same time, and they get hung up in something like cross-check, you know?
I see exactly what you're talking about. Now, let me tell you, the one thing I don't want Americans to believe is that somehow the county is going to take care of you, and that the county or your state government is somehow going to make these changes for you. With most of these states under control of the Republican governments, you can rest assured that all the shenanigans that are possible will be effected. So therefore, when you are moving, unroll yourself in the state that you're moving from and enroll in the state that unregister from the state that you're moving from and register in the state. You do it yourself, and you make sure there is a paper trail of you doing that. If the county or the state doesn't have a paper trail, take a picture or a video of yourself doing it. Because that's the only solution you have in this country now, where there's so much voter fraud, not by the left side, but a whole lot of fraud on the right side. In fact, all the convictions thus far for voter fraud had absolutely nothing to do with folks on the left, but in fact, folks on the right. And let me just give an announcement on Facebook Live. We've been having some sort of network problems here with getting onto Facebook Live. So what I'm doing is I just pulled out my phone and put it on cellular while I record otherwise. So for those who were expecting to see it on Facebook Live, I apologize. We will try to mitigate that at some other time later on, my friends. Anyhow, anything else you want to add, Tag?
Yeah. I actually called Austin and talked to the head of the voter registration people, the people that send out the cards.
Right.
I complained about the fact that there aren't any instructions on that card to how to deregister, let's say.
Right.
And he said that, yes, that he could see where there's a need for that. So he was saying that he is going to try to enact some type of change in the future so that it instructs you to sign that card and send it back that you want to be canceled. A couple other things real quick. Because I mentioned cross-check, and I said I don't want to get caught up in something like that. And he said that about half of the states actually subscribe to the Kansas cross-check system. So, and he also said there's another system called ERIC. And he said the ERIC system's a lot better because it's based on the DMV records.
Right.
And so I thought it was just real interesting. And he was quite open to the idea that he would like to help to streamline the system to make sure that people aren't getting kicked off the rolls. And so, it's quite an open, and he had a lot of great facts and figures. And it was just nice to talk to these people and have them say, yes, we want to make sure this is done properly. So he said there will be some changes on that card to help instruct people in that manner. So that was great.
Well, look, I appreciate you doing what you're doing, and not only that, coming on air to give that information to people so that they can be aware of what's going on, because I think that is imperative, my friend. So thank you so kindly for doing that, and thank you for calling into the show.
Thank you for doing the show and your Facebook and everything else you do, and I'll let you go. Thanks, Egberto.
Great. Thank you, sir. You have a great day. Let's go to line number 2, Johnny. How you doing, Johnny?
Well, I just got done telling your call screening guy that I had to put down some wood panels on the grass outside the front door to keep from slipping to break my neck.
I almost broke my neck a couple of days ago. I threw myself out there with, barefooted just to see, because it started to snow. And, in Texas, you don't get the snow for long. So I wanted to make sure I was out there for the snow. Almost fell and broke my neck. But
it's a quick way to remind yourself that you need to buy new sneakers, which there's no traction.
I hear you, buddy. I hear you. Talk to me, Johnny.
The Republicans are big on electoral fraud.
Yes.
Not so much voter fraud. They accuse us of voter fraud when the only cases of voter fraud is on the right.
Right.
But their big problem for us and for democracy is electoral fraud. And electoral fraud, as you know, covers a wide variety of misdeeds. But that's not why I'm calling. You know that movie Forrest Gump where his mom tells him, life is like a box of chocolates?
Yes.
Well, in the past few weeks, I feel like I've been given a box of chocolates, and I've tried 2 of them, and I like both. I can't decide which one I like better, the UN vote that pissed off Nikki Haley, or North and South Korea joining up forces on their reindeer games. You got to know that's really eating away. It's got to be eating away at Donald Trump right now, because that's kind of making his efforts really hard. He's got to do some mental gymnastics now. Oh, wait a minute. He can't do that. He's not stretched.
Johnny, be nice. Johnny,
Yeah?
be nice, okay? Remember, this is politics done right. We try to be nice.
Oh, I'm through being nice. That's your job. I got to vent. I got to vent. And democracy is in peril if we don't get more people out there and enough of the people on the right to join with us. And I would also say we need to start recruiting law enforcement, because they're the first line of defense against us that people like Donald Trump uses. They use our own energy against us.
You're absolutely right.
Salary.
You're absolutely
so we've got
right.
to convince enough law enforcement to not be beating up liberals and their friends when they show up to defend democracy.
Right. I hear you, buddy. I hear you. Okay, Johnny, anything else you want to say quickly before I jump to Justin?
Yeah, I'm wondering what the third chocolate's going to be. If you can hazard a guess, I'd like to hear it. What could be the third chocolate this week?
I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know. Have a good week.
You have a good one, Johnny. Thank you, buddy. All right, Justin, línea número 3. How you doing, Justin?
Good, thank you.
Talk to me.
Well, okay. John F. Kennedy, it's been demonstrated, it's been proven that in Chicago there was electoral fraud that led to his winning that particular state.
Okay.
It's been demonstrated that LBJ also won Texas Senate seat fraudulently.
Okay.
So why is it so absurd to think that those practices don't still continue?
I don't know if it's absurd to think that those practices don't continue. I don't. Did somebody here allude to that or allude to that?
Well, I mean, like every time, like people say that Donald Trump saying that there's voter fraud going on is so absurd. It's so like absurd to think that there's voter fraud going on. But his history demonstrates the exact opposite.
I don't know if I follow exactly what you're saying. The reality is that yes, there is voter fraud, and well, let me back up. Let me correct what I'm saying. There's not. I don't think there is voter fraud from individuals, from average Americans. The kind of voter fraud that Republicans are trying to solve, an non-existent type of fraud. What I think there is, and I think this can be proven, and I don't remember the name of the guy who did the investigative report on that, is that there is fraud, but it is generally perpetrated by many of those who are contending there's some sort of voter fraud. In other words, let's look at the machines. Let's look at who designed and invented the machines, and let's look at the shenanigans that occur with the machines. In other words, card check or using identities and that is not where the voter fraud is at all. The voter fraud is systemic within those people who control the voting process, not the individual American citizens. That's what I'm saying. And I don't think you're disputing that. Based on what you're saying with Johnson and Kennedy, you're not disputing that either.
Well, no, I guess not. But I want to get to another form of voter fraud, and I suspect you might disagree with me, but
okay.
I think lack enforcement of immigration laws and not deporting people who should not be here, like that in itself is a form of voter fraud.
Could you explain how does that become voter fraud?
Well, because I mean, like those people tend to vote Democrat.
Okay, let's stop you for a second right there. Remember what I just said, and also what you alluded to. The type of voter fraud that you spoke about was a voter fraud in which people not the average American citizen or person in this country is actually voting twice or voting where they're not supposed to, but it is systemic. It is something done by the powers that be, the people who control the vote. Now, your statement about undocumented people coming over here and somehow going into a booth and voting, let me tell you. Go ahead, continue.
I mean, I don't necessarily mean the undocumented people themselves.
Who do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, just they're them coming here and forming families here, and then getting pathways to citizenship and getting amnesty after having been.
I love that you brought that up. I get exactly what you're saying now. And let me tell you this. First of all, I'm speaking to you, Justin, and I honestly think you're a nice person that doesn't understand that don't understand the implications of what you're saying. And this is what I mean. Your contention is that bringing people, generally people of color, into this country, and I know it's not color-based, but it just happens to be that the people that you're talking about would be considered people of color into this country, and then having them have kids who are legitimate United States citizens somehow is voter fraud because these other people tend to vote Democratic, so it's about a skew into the Democrats by having original undocumented people come into the country. I get it. Let me give you the reality here, first of all, and this is why I have no qualms in what I'm going to say. I am the type of person that is for controlled open borders, first of all. And the reason why is this country was formed on a major sin. The people that we profess were great people who formed this country were illegal aliens. They would be considered illegal aliens for those who were here in the first place. Okay? So I do not accept from any of the original settlers of this country that came from Europe as someones who are going to say who are justifiably going to be in this country. Every single person on the planet, because of the evil in which this country was formed initially, I'm saying we've mitigated a whole lot of that. But I will not allow or accept from any original settler of this country to now tell anyone that somehow we are not going to allow others to be here because of how they got here. This is what I say. Control the borders, yes. But if somebody was smart enough, if somebody was able to get around and get into this country, you know what? It's the same thing the original settlers did. It's the same thing the Pilgrims did. They found a way in and they stayed. So yes, I am okay for protecting our borders to control things. But once you get here, baby, I am not for throwing you out. And the reason I'm not for throwing you out, because nobody here but the natives came here with the right kind of pass. So what I'm saying to you, my dear friend, you sound like a very nice person. A nice person that was indoctrinated by the evil of which this country originally began. I don't hold that against you at all. But I hope that...
I don't even reject the label anymore. To me, saying it is irrelevant to me because, like, when you say the natives somehow have a more just claim to this country, I mean, the natives aren't a monolithic group.
No, they're not.
The Pequot skinned and savaged other tribes.
Of course,
so,
not a problem.
The European settlers were just one among many other tribes.
Exactly.
Who had to win the contest.
You are making my point. You've just made my point. You have just made my point. And those people who came to this country, those people who got into this country, irrespective of the protections that we had, they're doing the same thing. Exactly. Yep. So you've made my point.
They're doing it by subverting the institutions that those European settlers founded.
But who created the institutions, my dear friend?
Native to those other immigrants that are coming in here.
Stop for a second, my dear friend. Objectively. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you this. If I go ahead and I steal somebody's property and then I apply rules of who then can come into that property, those rules makes no sense, because again, that is like me saying I steal your property and then want to put you in jail when you try to take it back, or when somebody else tries to steal it. So what I'm saying is, we always look at things from one point of view, and that is human. But when we decide to expand our horizons and see the realities of how things are, it should mitigate how we think. And that's what I'm asking you to do.
This
yes, sir.
continental landmass was very sparsely populated.
Yes, it was. Yes.
And there were nomadic tribes who didn't necessarily make property claims to the areas they inhabited.
Sir, I understand that, but you know what? That is like saying, if my culture says I don't believe in land ownership because the land is of God. The land belongs to us all. We are there. Let's be good stewards of it. And then I have another culture that comes in and say, I step here and this is mine. The European culture was to go wherever they were and conquer that land, annihilate what prevented them from capturing it, and then saying it's mine. There are other cultures that are more benevolent that say, the land belongs to us all. We don't have private ownership of land. What I'm trying to tell you, my dear friend, is this. It's a different thought process. Some people come into a situation and say, I will take dominion over. Others realize it has always been there, so how can I really take dominion of? It's a different thought process.
It's not an accurate characterization to say that the natives viewed the land as communal, because they warred with other tribes over usage of the land.
Yes, for the land and I don't have a problem.
That's
Sir,
the game they played with European settlers as well.
We are my statements are very consistent. What you said and what I said is not mutually exclusive, right? It's not at all mutually exclusive. What I'm saying is I don't support throwing the undocumented people out of this country. However, it is okay within the legal structure for us to have an electoral government that does that. Now, liberals and progressives like myself will fight that government so that it change the laws so that isn't affected. It's all about how we are going to do things to make things the way we want. That's what the natives did. That's what the pilgrims did. That's what everybody does. And all I'm saying is, don't make it look as if what the undocumented immigrants that are coming into this country are doing is somehow different than what everybody else is doing. And what we're doing is we're trying to establish some format in which we can all be happy. Justin, I got to go to the other call, but I really enjoyed this conversation that we had with regards to immigrants, because I think it opens it opens a discussion that I think we never ever have, neither on mainstream media or otherwise, that people look at immigration, undocumented folks, as if, there are these people that are coming to invade. The only people that came to invade America are the pilgrims.
Alberto,
yes, sir.
They are. They are, though, and by the cultural baggage they bring at the start. The cultural baggage that they bring will ultimately make this country not what it is.
Well, let me tell you something, my dear friend. I am an immigrant, and the cultural values that I brought to this country enhanced this country. I have many immigrant friends, and the cultural values that they brought enhanced this country. And I think what happens a lot of times is, because we concentrate on the negative of immigration, we don't concentrate on the net positive. And likewise, when it comes to those that are considered themselves the proper Americans, we ought to also look at the negative and positive of their side as well.
I agree with that, Alberto, but I think immigration should be culturally compatible. So yes, it should be mostly European immigration, as it was pre-1965 heart cell.
I get, I didn't.
So those are
let me tell you something. Let me stop you a second, Justin. I wanted to, Justin, let me just say something. I knew that's where you were coming from. I didn't quite say that, because unless it came out of your mouth, I would have been putting those statements in your mouth, and that's not what I do. But you explained with that statement exactly what you mean. You believe in America being a white country. You believe in the white supremacy of America, etc., etc.
Alberto,
yes, sir.
But That's how the country was founded. The first
and you know what? And that's true. And that's fine.
1790
My
was
friend, it
said-
is fine for you to believe that, right? And it's fine that, you know, you're actually right. The institutions in this country were white supremacist institutions. You are correct. But you know what? A white supremacist institution in the United States, because of just reality, cannot stand. And it falls on its own weight because a white culture in America is not self-sufficient. That's a fact. A white culture only in America is not self-sufficient. It is in need of the other cultures that have populated the region. And in fact, if you want to be honest about it, the white culture in America in its beginnings would not have survived unless the other cultures had helped it survive in this land. So there are a lot of, it is easy to have those thoughts, my friend. It is very easy to have those thoughts. The problem is it is not real. And what I need to do with people and I'm glad you called, and I hope you call more, and I hope you listen to my shows, and I hope that you listen to my blogs or read my blogs, because what I want to do to folks like yourself, and I am, by calling you a white nationalist or a white supremacist, I'm not trying to be derogatory, but I'm looking at it to say you are someone that I think in the long run I can change. But I gotta go, Justin. It was a pleasure speaking to you, and I'm glad that you call and you keep calling, brother. All right?
All right, thank you.
You take care now. All right, let's go to line number 5. John, come on in, John.
Good afternoon, Egberto.
How are you doing, sir?
That last 10 minutes was painful. That guy was such a racist, and you were way too nice to him. I know that that's what your aesthetic is, but, I mean, he needs to be told what really he's talking about, because, that kind of thinking has killed millions of people in this country, and it's totally unacceptable.
Can I say something to you in reply to that, John? Let me tell you something. When I speak to Justin, right? And for all my listeners, I think I've explained some of this before. When I speak to Justin, I am not speaking just to Justin. I'm speaking to wannabe racists. I'm speaking to wannabes, white supremacists, white nationalists. I am trying to plant seeds as far as the reality so that his fallacies isn't the only seed that's planted in those people's brains who could possibly get there. So the reason I keep my calm and I don't react to the carnally to a lot of what he says is because in doing so, I don't get the real message across to those who are really want. It's a possibility that Justin is far gone. It's a possibility that I'd never get to Justin. But I tell you what, I bet I got to a couple of other folk that may have been entertaining that what he said sounded good until there was some refuting to that. But anyway, continue, my dear friend.
Well, I just want to talk about a few things that he brought up that are just totally false.
Yes.
I mean, when you talk about Kennedy and you talk about LBJ, you have to have facts to back those things up. You can't just say, I read this. He didn't even say, I read this in a book somewhere. He just said, I don't even remember exactly what he said, but I mean, he didn't base it on any fact.
Right.
This is just all anecdotal. What it reminds me of is Trump saying how everything, crime is everywhere. We lived in a crime-based nation, and the truth is that crime has been going down steadily for the last 20 years.
Right.
And so, I mean, this is a total rejection of fact based on racism. He sounded like he was against birthright citizenship, which was
that's exactly what he was against.
Amendment, which has helped this country immensely.
Mm-hmm.
And when he kept saying, white people make the rules. No, they don't. I mean, unfortunately, the racism has been so strong in this country that black people haven't been able to vote properly, and that's why we celebrate people like Martin Luther King.
Right.
But I mean, the fact is that white people, when they came over, were fighting amongst themselves.
Exactly.
They hated the Irish. They hated the Germans. And so. This kind of idealism about all white people are superior and all white people are together, it's just a bunch of malarkey. It has no historical
John,
basis.
That is why you are important to this movement, okay? Because as a white man speaking those words, it is important as well. When I say those words, I mean those words, and I'm saying it historically. You saying it as well is very important, my brother. Continue.
Well, I just think that, our diversity is our strength. I mean, and I'm so happy that my parents raised me from when I was as young as I can remember to say that, that diversity in every culture is extremely important, and to respect people, for their the way they act, and actually respect people's culture. I mean, there's not one culture in the history of this world that doesn't have some kind of positive attributes to it. And so, I mean, like one of the things here in San Antonio, one of the organizations that I'm involved with is Musical Bridges Around the World, and we actually have people come in and play music for middle school and elementary kids schools. People from all over the world, they come in and they may be from India, and they're playing Indian music to say, hey, this is a different way of thinking. This is important that you understand how different people from the world, all over the world, think. Right. And this culture is very valid, and every culture has some validity to it. And we need to learn about, we need to get together and love each other, and not spread this hatred and spread all of this, the white man, and we shouldn't have birthright citizenship. I mean, it's just garbage. And to be quite frank, it's just so sad that Trump has brought all of this on. And
John, I want to stop you there and say that I thank Trump for that, because we've had a scab on for a long time. Okay, and I think Trump is allowing us to rip the scab, and there are a whole lot of white people, a large percentage of white people that simply lived under that scab, and everything was just simmering for a while, and Trump opened it up. I think it's a good thing, because what I'm looking for is a catharsis, and we continue to need folks, exactly, implicit versus explicit. We continue to need folks like yourself and others who are going to come into the fold and actually make a difference. So your voice is very important, brother. Anything else you want to add before we go to the next call? As we I stayed very long with that guy, but that was a conversation I wanted to have. Go ahead, John.
Well, one thing about that I disagree with you about the thing about the
narrative,
the terrorist attack.
Yes.
I think that this is emphasized way too much in our society.
Right.
And yes, we should say that Trump is hurting our institutions. But at the same time, this is, the proportionality of the media talking about terrorist attacks compared to people who just live, die because some guy who has a gun got angry and they decided to shoot somebody, for some, for no reason, or kids who play with each other and kill their cousin, who's 4 years old because a gun was around.
Right.
That actually causes a lot more death than terrorism.
John, you're absolutely right. About that, but I hope you didn't misunderstand what I was saying. But we're loaded with calls, and I stayed way too long with the other guy, and now I got to go through this whole list of calls. So all right. Thank you very much for calling as usual, brother. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Take care now. All right. Let's go to Gary real quick. Line one, Gary. Come on in, Gary, real quick. Talk to me, brother.
Well, two things real quick.
Yes.
Number one, I want to point out that this chain migration issue that Trump is opposed to was started in the 1800s due to the famine in Ireland. And
exactly.
So many Irish people wanted to be with their families that were here that they came in and they had illegal Irish people running all over the place, so they wanted to make it right that they could have and be with their family. So, it has nothing to do with all these other types of people. And here's my question. There's an old saying that you can't see the forest for the trees. And I'm wondering, will it matter who is in this country, whether it's Republicans, Democrats, or Greens, or Independents, or black, or brown, or white, when the planet is no longer sustainable?
I knew you were coming there, Gary.
Well, that's the issue.
Yes.
Good God, who gives a shit who's going to... I'm sorry, oops. Who cares
we blocked it, thank you.
of the world if there's no world to be in charge of? Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you so kindly, Gary. You know, I knew Gary was going there, Don.
Well, listen, if Donald can say that word, I can say that.
You know what,
word,
though?
okay?
But you know what? We get in trouble if we throw that on the FCC's air. You know, our air. Thank you, brother.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, let's go to William, line 3. Come on in, William. Talk to me.
Egberto.
Yes,
Happy
sir.
holidays. Did you get the card I sent you?
Yes, sir, and thank you so kindly. I should have mentioned that on air, my friend. How you doing, sir?
Did you make some copies for the volunteers when the pledge drive starts?
You know I should, shouldn't I?
You very well should.
So,
anyway, I have something. It's a rumor that I've heard.
Okay,
kind of a humorous
you got 30 seconds, though. Go for it.
It's going to be quick.
Okay.
I've heard that the Republicans have bought a herd of camels. You know that movie, Downsizing?
Yes.
They're trying to shrink these camels down so they can fit them through the eye of a needle.
Oh, you're going biblical on me, my friend. You're going biblical on me. I didn't know you had it in you.
This set of politicians that we're dealing with now.
Hey, William, brother, you have a good one. You have a great one. Okay, brother?
All right.
Take care.
Too. Thank you. Great show.
All right. Thank you, sir. Let's go to John, line 2. John, line 2, por favor.
Hey, Egberto, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I haven't heard from you in a couple, but talk to me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I agree with a lot of things what you said. Only thing is, that thing I hear from the left side is all about how the Western Europeans has taken over this country.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing is, we are forgetting on that all of South America was also colonized by the Europeans too, by the Spanish conquistadors.
Spanish and the Portuguese
and the
French. Yes, that's correcto, mi hermano. You're absolutely right.
And the Portuguese over Brazil.
Yes, Portuguese in Brazil and Suriname. And exactly, you're right.
Yes, I mean, only thing quick on that one is I don't think any country or nation is really innocent of taking over another country very peacefully.
And you know something? And because you said that, it means that, believe it or not, you agree with me. You see, what we do here in America is we go under, we create, or we think of ourselves as having some level of purity different than anywhere else. It isn't true. And that's the reason why you heard me mention, if those people that got over here, they got through our barriers and got over here, is no different than a pilgrims getting through the barrier of the Atlantic Ocean and coming here, and anybody else who came here. And thus, my personal contention is, if folks are out here doing their thing and they got over here, I am not going to be the one kicking them out at all. That's it.
And I agree with you. And only thing is, though, me and my friends, we knew years ago, like 10, 15 years ago, we knew a bunch of people that's been in this country for 20 years.
Yes, sir.
And we should try to tell them, hey, you need to get your citizenship or whatever. You never know when things going to turn.
Right.
In this country.
Yes.
And a lot of them refuse to get their citizenship. And I'm not trying to blame.
No, but actually, a lot of them were irresponsible. You're correct. You're right about that, Sir John. You're right about that. A lot of these people, they just didn't want to take the time or spend the money to go ahead and get themselves straight. So, I mean, a lot of it is self-inflicted. But, John, I'm running low on time, so I got to go. I have Mark and then MOD that I have to talk to. Okay, brother?
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
You have a great day now. Okay, let's go to Mark, line number 1. Mark, come on in.
Hey, Egberto, how are you, amigo?
Amigo, todo está bien. Talk to me.
Hey, I wanted to correct something that somebody said before.
Yes, sir.
The guy who called in and said that Kennedy's election in Illinois was fraudulent, that's false. Totally and completely false. That's been studied to death.
You know, the reason I didn't go ahead and correct that is that I knew that there was an issue with in Illinois with the Kennedy race, but I am not studied on that. So I had no opinion.
I am.
Yes.
And that charge is completely and totally false.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, there is some merit to the suggestion that LBJ's Senate victory was questionable because there were some precincts in which more ballots were cast than there were registered voters.
No, that's a problem, right?
Right. But that's not voter fraud.
Right.
Keep that in mind. That's election worker fraud.
That's what, and I don't know if you heard when I explained that to the caller, where I said that that is the kind of problems we really have. It's not look, which undocumented worker is going to run the risk of getting caught by going into a voter booth? Tell me. That it makes no sense.
Exactly. I've been an election worker for 20 years, 15, 20 years. And I know you have too.
Absolutely.
Done some election.
Yes.
And you could see the way the system is set up now, where it could be fairly easy to commit election worker fraud.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, we both are next to the machines. We know how the machines spit stuff out, and we know exactly how these things can be done. The thing about it is most people don't do it because the penalties are, first of all, most people are good people, but secondly, the penalties are ridiculous if you're caught doing it. And not only that, the influence that you are likely to have unless it is systemic is very small.
Yeah. People do election work because it's kind of like their civic duty. It's kind of like jury duty. You don't do it for the money. You do it because you think it's your civic duty.
Absolutely.
And you don't do it to cheat. You don't do it to rig the election. So I think voter fraud and election worker fraud are two totally different things.
Right.
And I think election worker fraud, while still rare, is far more widespread than voter fraud.
Look, you're absolutely right, Mark. Mark, I have to go to MOD. Is there any something else quickly you need to tell me?
No, just that the whole Kennedy thing is baloney.
Great. Well, look, thank you so kindly for calling in, my friend. And Don writes here something that I think we need to remember. Leader of the free world is a dangerous moniker. So says Don, and Don is absolutely correct. All right, MOD, talk to me, my brother. Talk to me.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, sir.
Yep. The dead man's vote. LBJs. I'll stay in the framework of the conversation, Egberto, that there is a European establishment, and that's from way below Haiti up to Canada, and it's not whitey. It wasn't 5% of the slave owners in the Bible belts that turned Republican were Spanish, Hungarian, Italian, African.
Now, let me qualify something for you, sir. Remember, Anglo is just one section of whites, but Hungarians are also white. Right. So, I mean, we're not talking Anglo, we're talking white.
What I'm trying to say is our attention span doesn't go much back then, a couple of months now. It used to be decades or centuries, but now it's conveniently conditioned with the content, movies, and the news we have, meaning that this continent was built for that reason, mercantilism. And that's been the case until Lincoln came around and they got rid of him. So this narrative of racism was, Albert Pike created the KKK. The FBI infiltrated KKK in the late 40s. So you might have a percentage of this country remaining that can maybe say white supremacy, but to me, I'm a firm believer that it's a cliche that can carry a discussion. Do we actually say that there's something else going on than just this BS?
Let me stop you a second, MOD, because you're alluding to something that I want to mention, and it's very important. White supremacy really have very little to do with the average white person, okay? That's the reality. White supremacy is how a very few amount of powerful people, mostly a 0.1% of white people and some others, to control everybody else. And the way they do that is they use that moniker or that reality against the people en masse. So if we have white people scared of black people and Latinos scared of, if we have all this mess going on, then what happens is what we get now. We get these people fighting each other for nothing. They're fighting each other for crumbs. When the reality is you look up.
See who's pooping on us, because the dialect we have is a reactionary.
Exactly.
We talk about the boogeyman or the scarecrow when
1 minute
people they step back from the poop flinging and look up. That 70% of the world's dictators are sustained by U.S. taxpayer dollars.
Wow, you are a smart dude. Absolutely.
And so all we're going to do is sit here and point fingers at each other.
We're not.
The poor people are to blame.
Hey, MOD, I got to cut you off, but let me tell you something, brother. You keep listening, keep calling, keep sharing, keep doing all of that, and make sure other people know about KPFT. MOD is absolutely right. And we are not going to be putting people against each other. What we do with this program and others around here is bring folks together. We are not going to allow the plutocracy to run this country and to pollute it. Remember, to run this country into the ground. Remember, when Appalachia, when the ghettos and when the barrios come together, the plutocracy is done. And that is what Politics Done Right and others intend to do. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so kindly for listening. And I am out.
Thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. You can personally reach me by sending an email to egberto@politicsdoneright.com. Remember, Egberto is spelled E-G-B-E-R-T-O. Change starts with you. 90.1 KPFT gives you information not tainted by corporate interest. Please visit kpft.org and contribute. Let's ensure continued access to real information and news remain available to all. Again, thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right.